Hi there, hope you've seen those lovely columns because that's really the essence of this video. A lot of people ask me what was the final nail in the coffin when it came to leaving Rootsmagic. The one thing I found myself doing back in 2019-2020 was I'd become aware of Family Historian. And mostly I'd become aware of the Family Historian records window and the possibilities. I used the trial and I found it very good and useful in my research. And then what I did was I purchased the software mainly because of the records window and how it was helping my research. So let's get started into the powers of the record window and how you can customize that in Family Historian. The video after that will be using named lists in Family Historian. And if you want to get a notification of that, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell down below. Let's jump in. As usual, I'm going to make comparisons with Rootsmagic, as a lot of my old Rootsmagic users have followed me to Family Historian. And then there's other software users who are purely at the curiosity stage, just like I was. I'm going to take this presentation slow but steady. There's a lot to cover and I like to make presentations as complete a reference as possible. What I don't want is any of you getting bored or falling asleep. Remember, you have the tools on YouTube to customize the presentation pace to your preference. Jump back and forward in chapters, just click on my channel name and then the videos tab, and you'll see all of the videos on my channel. I still get the occasional email requesting the dynamic videos pack from the charting video. Now what I do is I add any support materials to a shared Dropbox folder, which you can easily access through this link just below my channel name. Back to the records window, and this is the common screen layout I use with all of the essential information important to me. That's going to change for you. You'll have different preferences. But I also have other ready-made layouts, and I'm going to cover all that later. This font scaling is going to be too low for many of you, and it's very easily changed to get whatever font size suits you. Go to Tools, Preferences, Display. 85% is as low as you can go, and if you want 85% you need to enter that manually as it's not on the drop down pick list. I'm going to choose 120%, which will hopefully suit the majority of viewers. You can choose big, small or medium toolbar size and even where the toolbar text appears. What I'm going to cover in this video is basic column configuration, saving and loading favourite screen layouts, adding extended data columns, customizing display format of data, using expressions to display niche calculated indicators on this screen. Let me quickly look at some of the data I choose to display to help my research. Some of this can be included in Rootsmagic, so I'm only going to highlight the additional data Family Historian allows me to display. Children count. I just have this labelled kids. I can sort on any of these columns ascending or descending. You'll see that children count again later. Marriage year. This can't be added to display in Rootsmagic as it's a family event. I have this configured to display year only to save screen space. Again, more on that later. Marriage place cannot be added to display in Rootsmagic, and again I have the display customised. Spouse given name, again very useful if I'm looking for example Frank Surgeoner whose wife was Annie, and here I have the display filtered. Same for spouse surname, also this can't be added to the display in Rootsmagic, and immediately I can see duplicates here with the two entries of Francis and Anne Kelly, and this Francis has parents attached. If I were just migrating to Family Historian, that's a merge I need to address and clean up. Relationship, not possible in Rootsmagic, and relationships need to be manually refreshed in Rootsmagic. Relationships are automatically calculated and updated in Family Historian. We're up to number 7 now. Parents. Again, this important data cannot be added to the display in Rootsmagic. I can sort ascending or descending on this parent data. Father's occupation. This is often an important decider for me, which I gain from marriage certificates. If I return to my previous filter of Francis Surgeoner and sort on the father's occupation, these two stand out. A foreman miner and a miner, which was not a common occupation in Ireland. Both have given names which contain Francis, and I can inform you that Recavan and Skerry parishes are adjacent parishes, so more research to be done here. My final difference here is the note field, which I enter little prompts into to help me further my research. Notes fields of any type cannot be added to the people view in Rootsmagic. So that was 9 essentials to me, which I could not display back in Rootsmagic days, except by creating a flat printed report, which was like going back to pencil and paper. You can appreciate why when I saw the new Rootsmagic 8 version and 9 and 10 are very similar, and started looking around for alternative software, Family Historian and all these possibilities tempted me away very quickly. That's only scratching the surface of what's possible in Family Historian, and we're going to go into a lot of that later. I can change this screen layout completely in only 6 clicks, which you'll see very shortly. Out of the box, when you install Family Historian for the first time, this is what you will see. The records window is the one on the left that looks like a little stack of cylinders. You can also open the records window in any other views by clicking on the view menu and more workspace windows. This is the individuals window with the installation settings. Here we have the family view, the notes view, and I don't have any Family Historian notes records in this Rootsmagic import data. Next is sources, and I can see some duplicates here which I need to merge. I intend covering merge in another video, although I have demonstrated it before in other presentations. Next is repositories. I can see how many sources are using that repository. I can see more detail on some or several of them by clicking the plus or highlighting the item and using the right arrow keys. Media. You will have seen this on numerous media presentations earlier in the year, and I can sort on any of these columns, path, file name, etc, etc. Then places, and you can see a few important things which are different from Rootsmagic. Firstly, any place note is visible. The standardized place name is also visible. There's an update column which will show the date you made last changes. Importantly, the latitude and longitude is also displayed, and that's how this display is sorted. Immediately I can see 4 Australian items here on this old Rootsmagic import with the same geocoding, and one of them has an incomplete name. That's more work for me to resolve. Resolving duplicate facts, people, sources, etc. has been a dream in Family Historian, and much easier than it was back in Rootsmagic days. I also plan a little video on that, so make sure you click the subscribe button. Lastly, we have a tab for research notes. This is your to-do lists and research notes from Rootsmagic. They all come in via the direct import, absolutely intact. Again, I can sort how I please. You can see the item, the type, the dates and the links. I can see this macro bag item is more of a geographic research of that area. Again, you have an updated field which will start populating as you go and use Family Historian. I open this gardener births item which I remember working on back in Rootsmagic, and you can see everything is now tabulated. I delete these entries as I add them to my project. Earlier I said I could change any of these screens in 6 clicks, so I'm going to jump to a missing census screen that I frequently use. I right click the header and choose configure columns. That's 2 clicks. I click load from query, select the query and OK. That's 3 more clicks. Finally I click OK again, and that's the 6th click. Here's a screen layout I use for identifying missing census returns. I can list each year's census return and easily see if it's missing. Where a particular year is missing, I have this screen configured to show me the expected age of that person would have been on that census return, which is very useful. Again, more on that later. I usually use screen layouts like this in named lists when I'm focusing on cleaning up a particular data set. Named lists is the subject of the next video, and for Rootsmagic users that's the same as named groups, but much more powerful in Family Historian. Back to the main attraction. This is the records window layout you're going to see out of the box. If you download the Family Historian trial, this is exactly what you'll see. One of the very useful fields here is relationship to root. I have myself set as the root person, and Family Historian also calculates the relations of my wife through marriage. You can see here wife's uncle's wife. We also have half relationships. And here's my great ×9 grandmother. So how do we get this very useful data displayed? It's very easy, and there's various ways. Firstly, basic column additions. The simple, straightforward way is to right-click on the Records window header and select Configure Columns. Here is a simple pick list. Some of these are labelled as type data, some as event, and some as attribute. Don't get confused. In simple terms, everything is a fact. In reality, birth, death, burial, etc. are all events. Anything with a description field like occupation or religion is an attribute. Double-click on any of these to add them to the right panel of your screen layout, or move them across by clicking the arrow button. I find double-clicking the item the best and most direct way of adding items. Removing them, one needs to highlight and then click the left arrow button. Use these up-down arrow buttons to arrange the columns in the order you prefer and want them to appear on screen. Select any item and select Edit. You can change the heading here. Here I'm going to change the record ID to RIN just to save some screen space. You can also choose the default sort direction, ascending or descending. I'll come back to the insert data reference soon. I have already demonstrated how to load a screen layout from a query. Once you get your screen as you like it, you can save it to a query and easily load it again in the future. I have added several items to this configuration. I just click Save to Query and I'll just name it my test. Now that we've configured and saved, let me show you a couple of example screens I use. Here we have one showing alternate names from my Rootsmagic import. I reverse sort on alternate name 3 and check out the data. I can easily extend this to include many more alternate names just by copying this expression and adding a new column using other. Paste the expression in, and in this case change the square brackets 3 to square brackets 4, or the next one up in your sequence. And a few of these entries actually do have a fourth alternate name. This top one can be easily cleaned up. Both the names Minnie and Edith are contained within the birth name, so not really required as variants, which they were in Rootsmagic for sorting. I need to dig into my research a little, but it would appear Sissy Gracie was a name that she went by, so does deserve to stay. I also have the married alternate name here of Minnie Edith Leacock. We can see her husband was John Leacock, but recording a married name is not really necessary in Family Historian, as the program accounts for husbands' names. That's only configuring the Individuals tab, but you can customize all of these tabs to your own preference. I won't do them all, but let me show you the Family tab. I have this configured to show partnership, the children count, and the given names of the first 13 children. I'll reverse sort on the children count and you can see exactly how this works. This is a different view set up to show multiple partnerships up to 3, so I can spot errors and duplication from my Rootsmagic import. Really, you can configure as you please and quickly load new screen layouts. We've covered basic column configuration, we've covered saving and loading favourite screen layouts, and now for adding extended data columns. I mentioned father's occupation, but I was also reminded of this post by Rootsmagic expert Jerry Bryan. I always find Jerry honest, well informed and objective. In this post on the Rootsmagic Facebook group, he points out that you cannot search on witness event roles, and you can also not add them as columns on the Rootsmagic People's View. So that will be my second example. Right down to the bottom of the pick list, you have Other with 3 dots after it. Double click on Other and you get this. I'm just entering F-OCC for the heading. I click on the Insert Data reference and now I get a completely new dialog, which you may remember from the query building video. You can see virtually everything here is selectable. Firstly, I will check the plus beside father, then move down and the plus beside attribute. Remember, occupation is an attribute as it has a description field. Navigate down and you will see occupation, and you will see Family Historian displays the type of work or profession of an individual, and we can also see the data reference here at the top. I want to add that, and here we are. Before I do that, you can see I can probably add any item pertaining to the father, the mother, the spouse, the child or witness events. I'm not aware of any exclusions. For the spouse options, I click on spouse and then name. The description field tells me I'll get a word or combination of words to identify the individual. Equally, I can click the plus alongside the name and then select any component of the name I choose. I prefer to separate given names and surnames into different columns as I have a large database and I want the ability to sort on either of those. You will see I can also choose witness roles, which are the same as shared events in Rootsmagic. Remember, this data is a fresh direct import of my last Rootsmagic database. I can't list these witness events in Rootsmagic, but that is where the shared events were actually created. You will see down here 2 visitors on the 1911 census return of Elizabeth Sewell, but 10 years earlier they appeared on her 1901 census return as grandsons. Very useful. The next section is how we can customize the display format of data, and it's very simple. This date for the first shared or witness event, I want to save a bit of screen space and have year only. I highlight the column, click Edit and then Insert Data Reference. I click on Witnessed Event, but this time click on the plus alongside the date rather than the date itself. Now a bunch of additional selections appear. As I highlight each one, watch the descriptor field down below. That informs me what that particular option will actually give me. For dates, I normally opt for the abbrev for option, but you could equally choose year. If you're trying to customize your data display, then do explore anything where a plus appears alongside. None of this display customization is possible in people viewing the latest version of Rootsmagic, sadly. Before I leave this, let me show you a place field and the options available there. I generally use place short, which gives me the data up to the first comma. That's generally enough for me and all I need. If you need more, then place medium will display the place up to the second comma, and so on. Check out all the options and see what suits you best. Now we get down to the niche data display section. You've already seen that I can add flags and indications of being a member of a named list or named group in Rootsmagic speak. I'm going to restore the defaults again and add a mixture of these just to show how that looks. We get a load of checkboxes. We can sort on any column, but we can also very quickly add or remove these inclusions, flag or list. One last special configuration and possibility. This is where you may very well need to find your way over to the Family Historian user group, as expressions are usually pretty bespoke and not always easily understood. If you've watched my dynamic charting video, you'll remember an icon for infant death, and I had it set to less than 5 years. Here's the icon being displayed, and remember this is all dynamic within Family Historian. I go to Diagram, Options, then Boxes. And here are all my dynamic highlighting expressions. I scroll down and it's the 10th item on this list. I double click on the feature and here is our icon, and no other box highlighting is defined here. I want to click on the edit condition and copy this expression. Here it is in Windows Notepad. I have it set to greater than or equal to 1. I should probably have that as 0. Also less than or equal to 5, you can set that as you please. Back to my records window and configure. I go to the bottom of the pick list, double click on other. I put a heading of infant death and I copy my expression into the expressions box. Will it work? Of course it will. Here is the column. I click on it and now we have pretty green check marks for all of the infant deaths which match our criteria. To prove that, let me overlay our property box, which I usually float on a second monitor, and arrow down through some of these. Notice how the sorting in Family Historian is like almost cumulative, which is probably the wrong term, but let me show you what I mean. If I sort on relationship to root and then infant death, I get all my family relations that fill that criteria. If I sort on names and then infant death, I get an alphabetical list of infant deaths, and I can see there are quite a few armatures. If I just sort on name and move down to armature, you can see the infant deaths intermingled within the list. I intend covering name lists in the next video. The video will be shorter as a lot of the same principles applying to the record windows apply there. To see your name lists on screen, click this icon on the toolbar, and here they are to the right. If I sort on problem list, which are the records I need to return to, you'll see that there is only one George Surgeoner. I select problem list on the right pane, and here is George. I deselect the checkbox on the records window, and he's gone. Select it again, and he's back. Select the checkbox on any number of these other entries on the records window, and you'll see the list grow here. What could be quicker, simpler, or more intuitive? I hope you found that beneficial. The setup of the records window is really only limited by one's imagination. The fact that you can save different layouts and quickly call them back is an absolute bonus. Don't forget to hit subscribe down below and the bell if you want to get notifications of the next video on named lists and any other videos that I produce. I'm going to show the beginnings of the little DNA tracker that I'm using. And when I say DNA tracker, I'm talking about the matches that we all get flagged for on MyHeritage and Ancestry, etc. And those are just fragments. It might be one piece, it might be two pieces. It's like a little section of a jigsaw that you've started to build out. And eventually that jigsaw will become part of the main puzzle and part of the main tree. As always, check out some of the videos to the left. If you have any questions, don't forget to go to the Family Historian user group. That I find is the best forum for getting the most concise answers. Once again, thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next one.